She doesn't have the courage to say, I was wrong in this entire scenario. Why? Because she's evil. That woman is evil. You heard it from me. I'm not the first person who said it, and I'm not the last person who's going to say it.
Well, there it is. Skye Squad, listen, we are back in the building. And of course, we got to talk about this insane interview that Carlos King did with OG from Basketball Wives on his podcast, Reality with the King. I will place the link in the description for you to listen to it down below. But baby, it is insane. Okay, so let's dive right on in. First of all, we get a lot of tea straight out of the gate. And of course, the link, as I stated, I don't know if I stated it, but it's going to be in the description so you guys can check it out for yourself. It is very good. Make sure you check it out, rate it, comment. Let's keep that podcast in the top of the charts because it's given. Okay. Now listen, she signed on for 5 years for Basketball Wives. Oh yes. She had, well, I think what happened was, and Carlos kind of clarified that, you know, you sign on for your first season and then you have an option for 5 years. So she went on and told them, you know, that there were things that were happening, you know, behind the scenes during her first season. Okay. And then it was happening in her second season. And ultimately she was terminated. So apparently, though, she got a pay increase her third year, but they wanted to add 2 more years. And they made her do this. So she was actually supposed to be on the show for 7 years. But they did all of that only to fire her. Make that make sense to me. Now, she says the first year she got horrible edits and got cut from scenes. And, you know, she talks about how castmates are typically given wins. So when you watch a reality TV show, oftentimes the editors can perhaps balance characters, meaning some arguments they'll win, some arguments they'll lose. However, it appears as though she's saying that allegedly she was made to look like she was always taking the L, even though, or they were allegedly trying to make her look like she was taking the L when she was supposed to be set up for it. But because of the way her clapback game is, she was always taking wins, and the cast favorites didn't really like that. Okay. So she says that anybody who kisses Shaunie's butt would have access to her own information. This is like confidential, contractual information that she is alleging. Okay. She says in Costa Rica, you know, where they had that whole altercation, that time where Evelyn had fell in the bushes and whatnot that day, and she had gotten into it and she was patting the poon and all that kind of stuff and arguing with OG. Well, apparently, after that scene, Evelyn was allowed to go someplace, print out paperwork, but OG wasn't allowed to have her phone on set with her that day. So I don't know if they showed it in the episode that she's asking to go get her phone, but they had told her that she could not take her phone with her, but Evelyn was allowed to go and print out paperwork and documentations and things like that. She does indicate that Jackie was able to keep her 2 phones though. So anyway, she ends up getting sued by Evelyn, and there was an attempted restraining order, which was denied. They are still in court as of today. It has not been settled. Okay. This thing is going on and on. Now, initially it was, you know, kind of moving kind of slow because of the pandemic. Then they were supposed to appear via Zoom. You know, this is Evelyn suing her for calling for OG calling her problematic. Y'all know what I'm talking about when I say problematic. Evelyn, you know, had claimed at the time that she had lost money in deals because of that alleged, you know, that accusation or whatever. So they were supposed to appear in court via Zoom. But apparently, according to OG, Evelyn allegedly refused because she feared her life. How do you fear your life over the Zoom? How, Sway? Anyway, she says Evelyn has allegedly had 3 attorneys and has now asked for the court case to be moved to June of 2024. I mean, for real, who is trying to pay all these legal bills for all these many umpteen years for a situation that's over, said, and done with? It's time to just drop it and let it go. You ain't even on the show no more. Or, I mean, I don't know. She may be coming back. I don't know what the word on the streets could be. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, apparently she's had 3 attorneys, okay, over the course of this time. One was allegedly Jennifer Williams' old divorce attorney. One, she tried to represent herself, okay? And then I guess she got a new attorney or something like that. So, OG talks about how she's lost money and endorsements, and she's had all these legal fees to pay for this person. And she was like, the first person that actually called Evelyn problematic was Cece, and it was on TV. Okay, this was when Evelyn said that slur about Cece, okay, which we will not repeat here, but Cece actually called her problematic on camera. Okay, but it is for some reason the Nigerian woman who is facing the backlash from Evelyn and not Cece. Why is that? Okay. So Carlos then asked if they picked on her because they were hazing her or if it was because she was dark-skinned. And she says that all that she can say is that she was around certain girls, and when certain girls were not around, things were fun. She kind of gives an example of, her filming with, Jackie and Shawnee, and Shawnee shows up late, but her and Jackie are like having all this fun. And then when Shawnee comes, the energy kind of turns around. She thinks that they wanted to perpetuate a narrative based on their own insecurities. Okay. She says that she was curious as to why she wasn't allowed on that reunion stage during her second season reunion, where they kept her off in the back. She also says that she felt like she was playing defense in every scene and she was not about to kiss their butt. Okay. So speaking of kissing butt, we get into conversation about, Kristen being a dark-skinned woman as well. And OG really has to she kind of breaks down colorism versus racism, okay? And then she talks about the pendulum of hues and features and how people are treated differently because of those things. She talks about there being different types of acceptable black people in Hollywood. Like, one is the person who is okay being the butt of the joke and getting clowned on and acting kooky, aka she's saying Jackie. And then 2, the pick me, the follower who's gonna, not really address anything and fall in line. She says that's Kristen. And then she says the person who is being themselves and is not going to fall for the okie doke, and she's going to stand 10 toes down in what she thinks and how she feels. She also felt like she was in a room full of afters. Baby, when she said room full of afters, I said, what is an after? She said basically all these girls have had all this work done. They can't even remember what they looked like before they had all these surgeries, and they was mad because she hasn't had anything and her body is naturally banging, and they just a bunch of afters. You know how you look at a before picture and an after picture? Baby, I said, you know what? No. She says, Carlos says that, Tammy hit him up and, asked if it was something he could do for OG in terms of TV and whatnot. And she also gets into speaking of producers, she says there was a producer. Tammy had said that there was a producer who told her that OG was ugly and could not dress. All right, so we're going to get into that because OG talks about, that particular producer being the same person who told her to her face that they loved that she could design and sew her own garments and whatnot. And so it's odd that she's now telling Tammy that the girl that she can't dress. And they apparently never aired a scene between Malaysia and Malaysia stylist. They cut the scene out because OG came in her own self-designed outfit. Okay. She says they can call her ugly and all of that stuff, but she got a man. She can keep a man. She ain't got no problems with that. And then she also talks about how, speaking of designs and things and style and stuff like that they were talking about, she would be wearing a lot of stuff first. They copied her hair. They copied her clothes. They copied her phone case. They copied her makeup. And apparently Shawnee even got mad at her or had an attitude or something like that when she came to Amsterdam, wore a wig in one scene, and then went home that night and braided her own hair. And Shawnee saw her, and the next day was like, did you bring hair and makeup? And when OG said no, Shawnee was like, allegedly. Again, I got to say allegedly. So she even also says she braided Malaysia's hair in Amsterdam. Now, speaking of Malaysia, they talk about the wig scene face-off. Y'all know the wig scene where her and Malaysia had the wig off, okay? And she said she was reading Malaysia for filth in real time, but they chose not to really air much of what she said, and Malaysia had to get in her comments 4 months later in the confessional. And she says, OG says that she came to that scene fresh from her full-time job as a corporate executive and from football practice, and it was a black female producer that she asked specifically and said, hey, listen, my wig ain't tacked down. I've been doing all these things all day, okay? Does anybody have any glue or anything like that? And the producer told her, well, girl, we could just pull the wig back and align it with your hairline. So then when she gets in the scene, she sees the producer whisper to Malaysia, and then Malaysia glances up at her wig. Now see, This some stuff right here, man. So then we get into Shaunie's apology, okay? And we're referencing the sit down that she had with Mark Lamont Hill. Now, OG said that was damage control. It wasn't an apology to her for what she says. It was an apology for what Shaunie thought OG felt, not what Shaunie did. She never texted her. She never called her. She never had an on-camera or off-camera conversation about anything, okay? And she says she doesn't have the guts to call and apologize and admit she wrong. Why? Because she's evil, okay? Yes, the woman says she is evil. She says, you heard it from me. I'm not the first person who said it and not the last. And she says Shawnee does not have a pure, clean spirit about her. And OG can say it because she felt like she's been there. She says it's all faking for the camera. She says, look at how she did Tammy. Look at how she does Jackie. And look how she allowed Evelyn to act and then co-sign it, okay? She says, if you want to have a conversation about colorism, you have it with me. And then she goes on to say that the conversation that was had with Mark Lamont Hill was because he was an acceptable black person and a pick me. Okay. Then she says, and where is Mark now? Okay. He failed all black women because he knew what he was told to do was wrong. He was like, for instance, he could have got up and left and said, no, I don't feel comfortable about this. Cece was the only person in the moment that was like, if OG is not on that stage, I am out, okay? Then she says the only reason she came back into that reunion was because she was still negotiating her contract, which can happen, okay? And she says she had not gotten paid one single penny for that season, and she didn't want to give them any reason to say that she had breached her contract. I said, well, Now listen, this is the stuff that you don't hear about, right? And so Carlos wondered, well, there have been plenty of physical altercations on this show and nobody had to be separated for the reunion, okay? And he was kind of feeling like, I ain't even want you to come back at that point, because he was like, when she left the reunion, it was like he didn't want her to feel like, you know, they felt like, oh, she needed them or something like that. But she's like, no, I'm trying to get my money, okay? I'm not trying to be in breach of the contract, okay? So they get into some real deep discussions about how she really wanted to address the colorism issue, but once she realized they weren't willing to really have the conversation, she wanted to move on. But production and everyone else allegedly wanted her to continue to have the conversations, and it was making her look like the problematic person. But then they get into Chad Ochocinco, okay? This is where things take a turn right here. She says that she and Chad are cool and that the situation actually brought them closer, the whole situation between her and Evelyn. She says that she did not know how it all went down between Evelyn and Chad truly. They had multiple conversations, and she says that she feels for him. She says he lost everything dealing with that person. She does not advocate for DV at all, but she also does not advocate for DV when the woman is the one who is doing the abusing. This is what she is saying. This is what she is alleging. She says DV is not okay, but you can't be an abuser and then cry wolf. If this person is your abuser, don't call them in a life or death situation. If he is doing all of these things, how do you feel comfortable enough to ask him about me? He deserves to have peace, and not someone who continuously brings things up and is obsessed with him. She says, you don't see Chad constantly crying in the car in a Gucci hat because he don't have time for all of that. Okay? Now listen, I gave y'all an overview. You need to hear these words coming out of OG's mouth, and you need to hear the conversation that she has with Carlos King on his podcast, because it is deep, okay? It is very, very deep. Now, what I do like is that Carlos brought it all back in his outro about, giving people shared space to talk about their perspectives, okay? And so I think that was also a fair statement for him to make, because everyone has their own perspective. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about this situation down in the comment section down below. Click the link in the description. I am on the move, and so I'm going to do my best to try to put the link and everything in this proper spots. But listen, y'all, this was major. This was major. Let me know what y'all think. I'm gonna hit y'all in the next video.